Let's be real. Marketing can feel overwhelming, especially when you're juggling all the hats as a solopreneur, from social media to email campaigns, SEO to content creation. It's easy to feel like you're drowning in all of the moving parts. But guess what? It doesn't have to be this way. In today's episode, I'm breaking down exactly how to simplify your digital marketing so that you can spend less time stressing and more time doing what you love. We'll talk about what's truly essential, where to focus your energy, and the simple strategies that not only save you time, but also help you grow your business with clarity and confidence. So grab your notebook, settle in, and let's dive into how to simplify your digital marketing and create a business that fuels your freedom. Now, I want to share one of the biggest complaints. Maybe it's not so much of a complaint, but one of the biggest things that I hear entrepreneurs make when it comes to their digital marketing is that they're overwhelmed. They are trying to juggle everything. They've got their business. And when they started their business, it was because they loved what they were doing or they created a product that they wanted to sell. Never did they think that, okay, by starting a business, I'm going to wear all the hats, including digital marketing. And digital marketing isn't just social media. Digital marketing is social media, it's your email marketing, it's your website and SEO, it's all those things, plus your content creation. It's your blog, your podcast, everything that you do in the online world. So when you think about all of those different components and running your business, yeah, it's overwhelming. And let's add into that the rules change all the time, especially in social media. So, how do you stay on top of everything? Well, that's why I think it's so important to talk about simplifying your digital marketing. And here's why: we are too busy. And a lot of times, what we're doing is every time we sit down to work on our digital marketing, we are recreating the wheel and thinking of new ideas. What can I post today? We are scrolling our phones, looking for ideas, thinking we know we need to post something. So let's post it. Oh, wait, I need to send an email out. So let me think of what I want to send them. And the reality is that we can take all that stress away and create something so simple that, from a personal perspective, I will share with you that you'll have too much content. You'll have so much content and it's so easy to come up with. And it takes all the thinking out of it. And I remember that feeling that way in the beginning with my marketing. And I'm a digital marketer, but I didn't always start in this space. And when I wasn't in this space, and even as a digital marketer, you're so busy handling your clients, you're so busy doing everything that I was like, it needs to stop. I'm overwhelmed. I can't focus on what I need to do. I need to write email campaigns. I have an email list that I'm not using. It's a hit or miss if my subscribers get an email from me, because who has the time? And I realized that something needed to change. I had to simplify my marketing. So I sat down and figured out how I was going to do that. And I am still doing it to this day. And it makes it so much easier. So the very first thing that you need to do, or any entrepreneur should do, if you are like me and are ready to simplify your digital marketing, what I highly recommend doing is sitting down and, first off, thinking of what your big goal is in your business, and then creating pillars. And those pillars are content pillars. So what is it that you would talk about? So of course there's education, entertainment, there's a few different ones, right? And then of course selling. So you can create whatever it is. Now, my pillars, I do have an education pillar, but there's almost different items underneath that. So because I'm talking about website design and I'm talking about entrepreneurship, I'm talking about a few different things, a few different services and products that I offer, but I'll have them all under the education. And then I also give peeks behind the curtain. And when I show my real life, that's actually strategically placed. That's another one of my pillars. And the reason I add that is because that's my way of connecting with my audience, is sharing something personal, showing my real life. And then, of course, I have just fun, entertaining things. It might be a quote, it might be a quiz or something kind of fun. And then my sale, where I'm asking my subscribers, I'm asking my website visitors, my email readers to purchase whatever it is that I'm selling from them. So you want to sit down and you want to first think of what your content pillars are. And this is for your social media, but it's also going to overlap. And I'm going to explain how that all works, right? So you come up with those pillars. And when you are sitting down and you are creating content, I'm going to start with that. You have these pillars and you can start writing things that fit it. So for example, if you sell candles and you have educate as one of them, you might talk about the quality of, do you use wax? Do you use soy? What's the difference? What's the difference of the fragrances or the scents? I guess they're not fragrances, the scent of what you're using. Is it calming? Is it fun? Like what does it do? Educate on the product. You can educate on the process of how you make them or how they're used, different ideas, right? So for me, what's easiest is when I'm thinking of this, I can see all my pillars and I also see my big goal. So if my big goal is to sell X number of candles for this quarter, then I'm going to incorporate different pieces that would encourage that big goal of selling X number of candles. Are you following me? Then I'll sit down and start creating content. Now, let's just say hypothetically that you have a podcast or that you blog on your website, which plays into your SEO. If I know that here are the pillars that I want to talk about, this is the type of content that's going to lead to my big goal. So I'm going to create a blog post about the different types of candle wax that can be used. Instead of, when you start to create your content, starting from scratch, take that blog post and break that up into pieces of content. Repurposing is the key. Take that and then just reuse it. Take something that you said, take a bullet point that's part of that blog post and create content with it. When I start to create content for social media, for me, it's easier if I stay within a content pillar and start creating content. So what I might do is I do set a day aside to work on content. And maybe on this particular day, the first 30 minutes, I'm going to spend just on one particular pillar, and I'm going to drop in all my content and schedule it ahead of time. And then maybe the second 30 minutes, I'm going to come up with a different content pillar and schedule it. So maybe I'm doing education on one, and then the second one, I'm dropping in all the personal stuff and incorporating it. But I'm pooling all my education, I'm pooling all the value-packed content from that blog post. If you have a podcast like I do, a lot of times what I do is I take the whole transcript and I dump it into ChatGPT or AI, and I ask it to pull the best quotes from that interview. And then I use those quotes as content. I'm not recreating it. I have the ability then to tag my guest who was on the show. I can write a blog post about that podcast interview. And then I can also send it in as an email. So see, that's the key, is when you know what you want to talk about, when you know what your goal is, you pick the one big thing that you're doing and do it. For me, it's the podcast. The podcast is that big piece. From that, all my content, all my email comes from that podcast interview. And I take it and incorporate it into that. And then I use those conversations and that content to lead to whatever my call to action is. And that call to action can be a number of things. I can ask them to subscribe. to my newsletter so that they can get the podcast. I can ask them to follow me on one of the platforms. I can ask them to purchase something from me, whether it's one of my courses or it is She Is Collective. So you see, a lot of times what I see entrepreneurs doing is in all of those different categories, they're treating it as a very separate category and they're recreating the wheel in every single one. When in reality, you don't have to recreate the wheel. The best way to simplify your marketing is to come up with a game plan of what is the one big thing you're going to talk about in your blog post or your podcast. And here's another key that I think is really important. I think it's really important to have one big content character, and that can be a podcast, it can be your blog, or it can be an email newsletter. One of those three things where that's your key resource of content. And when you come up with what you're going to talk about in one of those three things, from that, repurpose the content and put it into whatever, put it into your email, put it into your social media content, whatever you need to do. And it absolutely saves you time. Another key that you want to do is set a day or some time aside to actually get all this done for the week or the month. I like to do it 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time, but I will tell you that my podcasts are recorded months ahead of time. So I already have an idea of what I'm going to talk about. I have video clips that I can use on TikTok or Reels or YouTube or LinkedIn. I've got the content already that I can do. And the only thing that I do drop in that is a little bit more in line with like in the moment are my personal pieces. Those are a little bit closer to real time, but everything else is already set up, ready to go way in advance. So setting it up is so important, and scheduling it. Now, I use Metrical to schedule everything. I like Metrical a lot. It gives you a lot of great analytics that you can look at, and you can schedule your content. I like it. I've tried a few different ones. So I like doing that. If you have any type of video, whether you are a podcaster and you create the video as well, like I do, they just switched the name, but it's Video AI. And if you type that in, it's a new name now, and I can never remember the new name. But I use that and I drop my video in there and it creates clips of content for me. So I'm not going through and spending hours rewatching and deciding where to cut little splices out and create reels or YouTube shorts. It does it for me. It saves me hours doing it this way. And I have a ton of content that I can repurpose, not only that week, but I can also schedule it out or take old content and use it again. Take content from 4 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, and reuse it. They're not going to remember that you use the same content. As long as it's still in line, it's still correct, it hasn't been outdated, then absolutely repurpose that content. There's nothing wrong with it. And when you use a tool like Metrical, you can go back and look to see which of my posts on social media perform the best and let me repurpose it. You can do the same thing with your email marketing. You can take a look to see which emails had the best open rate, click-through rate, and you can choose to create content like that. And maybe when you do repurpose the content, maybe you change the picture, but keep the words the same. So those are some of the tools that I use. I use Video AI and Metrical to get that done. Of course, Canva is pretty popular. If you are creating your own graphics, you can use Canva as well. But I think focusing on key tools like those 3 tools save me so much time and so much money because I don't have to do everything. So of course, Canva I do have to create, but it's so easy to use. You're not using, I mean, they make it super, super simple to use Canva. And Video AI, saves me hours. Metrical saves me hours because I can schedule it in there. I can see my Instagram profile to see if it matches, if it looks the way that I want it to look. I can see when the best time to post on LinkedIn is, and I don't have to do it in the moment. So it saves me so much time. Now, here's what I don't want you to do. I don't want you to get overwhelmed and think that you have a ton of tasks. I think the tasks can be really simple as far as thinking of your big goal, coming up with your content calendar or your content pillars, and then writing down ideas. Just brainstorm a bunch of different ideas under those content pillars of things you want to talk about, or scroll social media and find topics that you find interesting or your ideal client would find interesting and jot that down to repurpose it. And then each week, have a game plan depending on what your main content is, your blog post, your podcast, or your email newsletter. Work around that. Repurpose your content. And here's the thing too, I want you to keep in mind, because something that causes frustration is that a lot of times entrepreneurs feel like they need to be on every single platform, social media platform. Stop that. You do not have to be on every single social media platform. And trust me, I know it's hard to not be active on one. I know you feel like you need to be all these places because you could miss something. But what I want you to do is think about where is your ideal client? Where are they hanging out? If they're hanging out on LinkedIn, then stay on LinkedIn. If they're on Instagram or if they're on Facebook, then stay there. But you don't have to be everywhere. Trying to be everywhere makes it more complicated. And I will also share that I am not a fan of content being posted on the same day at the same time on all the platforms. The reason that I'm not is because even though I'm looking on these different platforms, if I see the same stuff on all those platforms on the same day, on the same time, I don't need to follow you on all the platforms. I just need to follow you wherever it makes sense to me. So that being said, if you are creating the same content and you do want to share it on all three platforms, which I see nothing wrong with, change the time that you're posting it, change the day. So maybe a reel that you posted on Monday, share that same reel. You shared it first on Monday on Instagram, share it the following Friday on LinkedIn, so that it doesn't look like it's the same exact thing all the time being posted everywhere. Change it up, shuffle it up, or do it the next month. Put that post a month later on LinkedIn, whatever, but make it feel unique. Make it feel like I'm not seeing the same thing if I'm on every platform. But that being said, don't try to create new content for every platform. Just change it up where you schedule it and it'll feel different for the end users. Batching all that content and creating it all in a bulk, putting it into metrical, and having it scheduled out, I can promise you it's going to simplify your workflow. It's going to make everything feel so much easier and so much lighter. Now, I did share that when I do it, I do like to stay in the zone of the pillar. For me, that works. It's how my brain works. And so if I'm pulling quotes, I'm doing quotes only. You think if you're only focusing on quotes and you're going to schedule one quote a week, and I have these podcast interviews, and trust me, from these interviews, when I put it into AI, I get a lot of different quotes that come up. How easy and how big of a time saver is that for me to schedule those quotes? I can schedule 12 quotes, which is 12 weeks, in no time at all, because AI has already pulled out those quotes, another time saver. And all I have to do is copy and paste that quote onto a template in Canva, already set up, ready to go, another time saver. Schedule that into Metrical 12 weeks ahead, right? From whatever week I'm working on to 12 weeks later, once a week. Schedule it. I don't have to think about it again. huge time saver. And I can do all that in about 20 minutes because I already know what I'm going to say about the quote because I was in that interview. And I can tag the person that was part of it, so it's going to get even more reach. Huge time saver. Pick another topic when I'm doing the reels, right? I'm just pulling from the interviews and creating these reels. Video AI has already split them for me and created the right size that I can use in whenever. So I schedule that. Again, huge time saver. So, and then don't forget repurpose. So it does not have to be overwhelming. If you set an hour a week just to work on your content, I can promise you that maybe that first week might take a little bit of time in that hour. But as you do this and you get into that system of looking at your content pillars, focusing on your goal, and getting ahead of the game, it's going to be so easy. It's not going to take you any time at all. An hour will put you months ahead and you don't have to think anything more about it. So anyhow, I hope that helped. And my dog just walked in. I hope that helps. And if you've got questions on how to simplify your digital marketing, reach out to me and ask. I would love to help you and help answer those questions. So until next time, guys, I'll see you next week.